what do you do nowadays, and what's your background?
Sure. So my background is in computer science. I have a bachelor's in computer science, and then I have a master's in computer science as well. And right now I work at a company called NVIDIA,
Hmm.
known for, well, most people known for the graphics cards. They do all kinds of really cool computing solutions right now.
Oh, okay, nice. So where are you located nowadays? Are
I'm
you?
located in North Carolina.
Oh, okay, North Carolina, North Carolina. Interesting. Is your company there local, or are you work remotely? Like how does it work?
I work remotely. The main headquarters are in Santa Clara, California,
Yeah.
but there's several offices. There's one in Durham, North Carolina, and I used to go to it fairly often.
Yeah.
Now I moved a little bit further out, so at some point kind of I'm just working remotely really. I
Oh,
go to
okay.
the office maybe once a month, once every other month.
Yeah.
And not really since the pandemic started. I haven't been there.
Right, right. No, personally, also, I like to be remote, just like you, but at the same, personally, I feel like one day a week, maybe 2 days a week, going into the office and just that would be. I think that would be ideal long term, but I mean, I'm okay with working remotely now, although it gets a little lonely sometimes, but we'll get over it.
You can, if you kind of have to make an effort to try to get in touch with people, have calls. We're encouraged to use webcams just to give a little bit more of a personal touch.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Right. So let's talk to the time you were a young student, a young computer science student, because one of the things when it comes to young engineers and then young engineering students, there's a lot of anxiety because we don't know what to expect once we graduate. A lot of times we get to the whole imposter syndrome. We graduate and we think that we're not going to perform well enough, and so I'm going to go over your career from the time you were a student. So the first question, the basic one is, what made you get into computer science? Have you always been a geek when it comes to like coding and robots and like software and stuff?
yeah, I think I am. When I was about 6 or 7 years old, my dad bought this used computer. It was a Texas Instrument 99 4A. You're talking about a 40-year-old computer, pretty much.
Yeah.
So as a kid, I got it. It was already kind of a little old back then, and I started learning BASIC. I started programming stuff. I would play a few games on it. Then I tried to make my own games. Didn't work. So,
You try to make your own games?
yeah,
Oh, well, how old were
when I was
you
like 10, maybe 10, but I'm talking very simple stuff, nothing fancy.
yeah, like for instance, like for me, so I'm not that programming savvy. I have a basic understanding, obviously, of programming and how it works and commands and stuff. But whenever somebody says, "Oh yeah, I made a few video games," I'm like, "How do you make that happen?" It's just
I I couldn't say I made video games. I tried to make video games.
Oh,
That
okay,
would be
okay,
more precise.
gotcha. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So basically, that was basically a fast track for you. You kind of already figured out what you wanted to do long term since the time you were a kid.
Yes, I knew I wanted to go into something like computer science or computer engineering when I started high school. I kind of knew that already.
Nice. In high school, did you take any type of coding classes?
There weren't any offered. If not, I would have. But
Hmm.
I mean, I grew up in Chile. I didn't grow up in the U.S. So
Oh, really? Oh,
um,
that's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah. I grew up in
I
Peru. Yeah.
yeah, I know. Yeah, Peru's awesome. My dad used to live there when he was a kid.
Oh, nice,
Loved
nice.
it.
Yeah. Oh,
Um, the yeah, so they didn't offer anything like that. In fact, it was very few options when it came to when it came to electives.
hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I just tried to take more as many math classes as I could because I really enjoy that subject.
Yeah.
Um,
So you took math, and then so obviously for anything that it's coding or programming heavy, you don't really need that much physics. You didn't take any type of physics or chemistry, biology, right?
yeah, I mean, just the bare minimum requisites and
Right.
yeah, physics. I mean, I did well in school, but physics was definitely the hardest.
Right, right. Yeah, but yeah, I remember when I was so I graduated high school in 2006, and then so at that point I didn't even want to go to college back then, but but yeah, so physics, I remember I took physics. But when it comes to your case, so you went into college already knowing what you were trying to do, and you got straight into computer science, right?
So back in Chile, there's basically this engineering sort of degree where everybody starts like the same first 2 or 3 years are the same for everybody. Back there, a career takes 6 years. Like a whole
Mm.
major engineering major is about 6 years,
Oh, okay.
and that's just for a bachelor's. Um, so I did 1 year, did pretty well, and then the opportunity came for me to go study in the United States.
Hmm.
So then I transferred, and I had to pick: do I want to do computer science, computer engineering? What aligns better with what I wanted to do? And realized I like software better, so I picked computer science.
Oh, okay. So how many years did you study in Chile, and then
Just
you came to?
just one.
Oh, just one, and then oh, okay, awesome. What university did you go to when you came here?
Brigham Young University in Utah.
On Utah. Yeah. How was a shift in culture from Chile coming to the US and like to Utah?
There was one. It was interesting. Let me see. Well, the cold. I've never been exposed to snow
Yeah.
at that level, so that was something to get used to it.
Yeah.
I
Y-
loved Utah. I really enjoyed my time there, and as I said, I have friends and family there.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you learn English in Chile and then you came here
I
or?
learned a little bit. My dad, he was fluent because he lived in the United States as a kid. Um, yeah, I learned some before coming to the United States. Then when I moved for the first year, I was studying English as a second language, and then
Mm.
I transferred to Brigham Young University to actually study computer science. So I
Oh,
studied
okay.
at a couple of English schools and at a community college for a year.
Yeah, yeah, nice. Yeah, yeah. The community college definitely. I think it's one of the best ways to go when it comes to college in general and university.
They're pretty good, yeah.
Um, so you started your career as a young computer scientist there in BYU, and then so as you kept going further as a student, how do you? What was the? Do you when you came here after a year in Chile? Do you transfer as a sophomore, or you had to start
Uh,
over?
I sort of transferred as a sophomore. I
Hmm.
did this. I decided to retake a few classes because I was still, moving to a new country, new language. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't taking that. I wanted a little bit of a buffer for the first year, so I wouldn't go through the whole shock of changing places, culture, and immediately going into sort of a competitive environment where you have to have good grades. So I
Yeah.
retook some classes. I retook calculus. Um, the first time in Chile, I barely passed because then I don't know, there's basically no homework. It's just tests and they're brutal. So I barely passed the calculus classes. But at BYU, I don't know, they were very easy A's. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Because I
Wow.
was coming a second time, I think that was mostly it. And also,
Right.
there was a lot more focus on homework.
Ah,
Um, so yeah, that made it a little bit easier.
yeah, that's awesome. I'm sure a lot of people will be jealous to hear that. Oh, calculus is so easy. It just second time.
It was the second time, and yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. So after you started on your first, you started basically over, and
Mhm.
then at what point did you ever get any internships after? I mean, until the time you graduated and your second, third year, and
Yes.
what was the process of getting internships? Because I think that that's what a lot of students have trouble with. Like it's like your first opportunity, right? It's like your first
Yeah.
job, your first sale if you have a company. It's like, how do you make that happen?
The
So
first one that you break
right,
in,
how did you make that happen for
and
yourself?
and it's kind of a chicken egg problem where usually employers what they want to see, they want to see prior experience, right? So how do you
Right.
get that experience? In my case, so when I started at BYU, I got a job on campus working at a dairy lab where they
Mm.
make basically where they bottle milk, ice cream, and stuff, and it was actually a pretty cool job. I really enjoyed it. So for that first year I did that, I passed my first computer science classes, and then I managed to score a job as a teaching assistant for the first computer science class for the second year. I did that, and I think I did well. There were a lot of students that liked my help session, so they would come to my help sessions.
Yeah.
And with time, after doing that for a while, the head teaching assistant needed someone to sort of help revamp a little bit of the website for that class, where they kept all the syllabi and all the assignments and such. So I said, okay, well, I'll do it. I mean, I'll try to learn how to structure a website, and I'll try to do it. So that taught me HTML, CSS, a little bit of web programming. And then I started applying for other jobs, and I got a job in the web programming team for the school had a TV channel, a TV station with several channels actually, and radio stations, and they were recruiting for someone to help in their web team, and I joined. And that was very helpful. I learned tons. I did a lot of web development. This old stuff. That's ASP before the ASP.NET. So it's pre.NET days. After doing that for a while, I applied for an internship with another company called Novell, which is it's kind of like a larger corporation.
Yeah.
And I worked there for a while, and so it was sort of little incremental steps, things that I could do to sort of start building my resume.
Right.
That slowly transitioned into me getting an internship off campus. That was helpful. After that, I got another job with a smaller company that did cryptanalysis, like software for breaking encryptions. And then I got a couple of research, like undergraduate research. I did that until I graduated, and
oh wow,
so you were built up.
Yeah, so you were involved in a lot of stuff when you were in college, like very out there per se when it comes to collaborations and then helping people out and helping with websites and then helping the school.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's actually a really good way. A lot of times we focus on, oh, okay, where's the first company that's going to give me an internship? But I think if you can focus locally per se, right? Like in your school, how can you help your school or be part of research programs like you mentioned?
Yeah.
Wow,
All those things help sort of pad your resume where, you might be a sophomore or junior, but now you have some things in your resume. Now you become a little bit more attracted to those companies, because the companies, all they care about is how can you make money? How can you be productive and making money? They don't care about your grades. They don't care about, grades is just something they use to sort of as a cutoff to filter applications. That's not because they care about the grade, actually.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Right. And so what would you say to someone? So let's say I'm a freshman in computer science, right? Or, okay, so let me put it this way. I am a junior in computer science. I don't have any type of experience, and I'm looking for that first internship, and I'm sure this is one of the questions that we get on the subtle engineering trades group. What would you say to someone, okay, you can't find an internship, what would you do in that case?
Well, so it comes to this. Like I said, employers care about prior experience. After prior experience, the next thing is projects that you may have, a portfolio of sort of extracurricular activities. And that can be personal projects you do on the side. It could be, and this is a really good one. Basically, every major has these independent research classes where you find a professor, say, hey, I'm interested in the subject. I know that it's something that you work on, is related to stuff that you do research on or that your lab works on. I would like to do this. Would you mind being sort of my mentor? And now you can sign up for a class that you get credit for. That usually it's graded on how much effort you put, not on being precise. It's usually it's an ECA. You get a project for your portfolio. It's like win-win. I absolutely recommend people to do independent research classes when as many as I can that account toward the major, because those can really help you get a job, because they hit so many things that employers care about.
Right. And then especially, like you say, you get a grade, and then you're working as a team with other engineers, And then even if you don't get a grade, even if you just ask me, hey, can I just shout out people? And I just like, it's like free labor basically, right? It's like,
Yeah.
just get your head in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if you're applying to grad school, now you got a professor that you work for that can write your recommendation letter, and that's your goal for the grad school application.
That's a really good option as well. And then, so if you are a senior per se, and let's say you're running out of time, I don't know if you ever help somebody out when it comes to
Yeah.
just getting the first opportunity, the first entry level job with no experience whatsoever. You know, like have you ever dealt or helped someone in that situation?
Yes, I've talked to many students in that situation. Um, uh, it's tricky because at that point it's a little, I mean, might be a little too late to do one of those research experience things.
Right.
You're probably busy applying for jobs, so you may not have a ton of time for like working on a personal project.
Hmm.
The next thing would be networking with people in the industry, and that sounds super intimidating, but it's simple. It's as simple as if there's a professor you build rapport with, you can ask them, do you know anybody in industry that sort of works on something that aligns with what I'm interested in? Can you introduce me? That's how I got my job. That's how the person that recruited me got his job too.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
it could be as simple as cold contacting alumni in LinkedIn.
Mm.
You look for people that graduated from your major, from your school in LinkedIn, and you send them a message, say, hey, I'm an undergraduate, and I wanted to do a short informational interview, wanted to know about your career, about your company, about how you got to where you are, because I'm learning, or it's for a class, I mean, whatever you can say.
Right, right.
Sometimes you find people that are willing to do it, and that's helpful because it's sort of some degree, it can be sort of make your own internship interview. Because if you come up with a good resume and projects, sometimes they'll ask you for it.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
a really good way to approach it. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a really good way to approach it, as opposed to just going and asking somebody, hey, do you have a position available? Like you go and ask, hey, can I learn a little bit more about what you do? You know,
yeah,
and oh, huh, interesting. That's a really good
and,
technique actually.
yeah. And you get attention from people that actually can because when you're a hiring manager, you might have 200 online applications waiting on a queue that you need to review, right? But if some other engineer from a company says, hey, actually talk to this guy or this girl, and they're pretty good. They I really like talking to them. I feel they're pretty capable. That sort of they often have the ability to sort of put a star on that application and it gets put at the top of the stack.
Right, right. Oh, that's brilliant. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be enjoying that tip right there. Just contact people, cold contact people, right? Cold emails or cold messages. That can really work too. You know, something
Yeah.
that I don't know if you watched this video in my channel, but one time, one guy, I found this comment on a video, and this guy said basically he he went to offices personally, and he went to ask engineers in person if he could work for
Wow.
them with the resume. And then so he basically, as opposed to cold calling, he was
Hmm.
cold visiting these people.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, and
I,
apparently it worked for him.
I'm glad it worked. I guess when networking, what you don't want to do is like transfer the problem of getting a job to the person. Like if someone's coming I mean, ask for an interview and say, hey, are you aware of any internships? Yeah, I might be able to see if I find something that might be a good fit for them. But if they say something like, well, can you get me a job inside? That's sort of transferring the burden.
Oh,
But saying that you're interested in an internship and say that you mean applying, that's good. And further, after, let's say, a month later, you look on the website for that company and you find a particular job or intern position or something that you're interested in. You apply online, and then you send an email to the person you already talked to. Say, hey, I applied to this particular job with
mm,
requisition number, blah blah blah. Do you happen to know the hiring manager? Maybe I'd be interested in seeing if I can get in touch with them.
yeah,
That's an opening for the engineer to maybe approach the engineering manager and say, hey, this guy, I talked to him a while back, if you're and can give their feedback. So
yeah.
again, bumps your application to the top of the stack.
Yeah, right. That's a really good point too. And I think since we're talking about contacting people and just kind of putting yourself out there, a lot of times people may take action and may do just that. However, the way they approach it and the way they word their email per se, or the way they straight up talk to people, it may not be the most optimal way. And people just kind of find you a little bit, okay, that's a little too direct per se, or you're being a little too pushy per se, right?
Yeah, a little pushy. Yeah, that can happen. And I mean, we're not gonna lie here. We know that engineers sometimes engineering tends to attract a particular type of people that sometimes we're not that great with social skills. I had to learn a ton
Yeah,
before I was good at networking or talking to people.
right.
I mean, you can always talk to um, go to your schools like Career Center,
Yeah,
and sometimes they have mock interview programs, things like
yeah.
that, where you can practice. So and they give you feedback. That can help too.
Yeah, one of the that I think something that can help with that type of is learning a little bit about marketing, you know, because when we are looking for a job or an internship, our resume basically helps us market ourselves, and when we talk to people, it helps us market ourselves. So one of the concepts of marketing is that, okay, what kind of value, what kind of problem are you solving? And so if we apply the same philosophy to approaching recruiters per se, right, or approaching engineers out there, okay, how can you help the company, like you mentioned a little earlier, how can you help the company solve a problem or work on a project that's going to succeed, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Marketing. Know how to market yourself. That's a main thing.
exactly. Um, so you basically built a lot of experience ever since your first year, you mentioned, right? Or your second year at BYU. You started working on little projects, started building
Started
your
working on
portfolio.
things. Yeah. Mhm.
And for your first job, did you already have rapport basically with the first company you worked for, or it was kind of they hired you based on your experience and what you brought to the table?
The first company that I worked aside from that TA job was BYU Broadcasting, the TV station.
Oh, okay,
Um,
okay, yeah, that's TV
and
station.
and yeah, it was sort of a company, but part of the university, but sort of like its own company. But if you're talking about the Novell, the big company that I worked for afterwards, um, no, it was just online application. At the time, I didn't know anything about networking or anything like that. So,
Right. How
uh,
old were you at that time?
um, 20, I must have been like 22, 21,
Oh,
somewhere.
pretty young, yeah.
Yeah.
And did you have any since so for the first company Novell that you worked for, uh, did you run into any type of imposter syndrome, or you already have
Oh, yeah.
confidence built up?
No, absolutely. Imposter syndrome is basically an occupational hazard for people in STEM. Yeah, I did have it. And in fact, that first internship, I didn't do that great.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was tricky. First time in an environment where there's like in the previous company I worked on, it was just basically one team, and the manager was really close to us, and we were friends. We knew each other really well. We knew our strengths. We were just like six people, and now going to work for a company that has maybe like, I don't know, a few thousand working for them, and the mentor that I had assigned at the time was kind of brushing me off. Then I got assigned to another person that we worked on something. Then she left for maternity leave, and so that left the project hanging a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it had a little bit more rough edges. It was tricky.
So how did you overcome it? I mean, did you just kind of like shook yourself off and moved on and on to the next, or?
Yeah, well, I just tried to do the best I could, and I also started looking for another job.
Yeah,
Um, so that those two things sort of work together.
it
I mean,
kind of.
I just tried to do my best. At the time, I didn't know enough to, like now in retrospective, I say, hey, I probably should have um, approached them and say, hey, I'm a little struggling on this. I don't know if I may need a little bit more help, or I should have I didn't know at the time that I should probably communicate more where I'm
Mm,
at. Because really, when you start a job somewhere, you're not expected to know everything. You don't learn proper job skills in college. You learn like just knowledge that you can build on. But yeah,
right. Yeah. They don't teach you people skills and then marketing yourself, like we were talking about a little earlier.
yeah,
Uh, so basically, the biggest lesson from your first experience, your first professional experience after college, was communication and communicating a little better.
yes,
And
communication. At some point, really, as you get grow as an engineer, there's a point where you don't grow based on your technical skills. Really, you grow based on how good you communicate with people, how good you can mentor, how well you can own projects or pieces of projects. And those
mm,
are not necessarily like technical skills, they're more like people skills.
right, right. That's a really good point. So you mentioned mentors right there a little earlier. You had a mentor,
Mhm.
and I recently made a video about mentors. So I want to get your take on. Uh, so what was your experience with the mentor? And it sounds like you have some mentoring experience as well. I may be wrong.
A little bit, yes, a
Okay.
little bit. In grad school, I mentor a few undergrads. Um, I mean, as a senior engineer, I have a mentor. Uh, the mentors for senior engineers are principal engineers. So a guy like me that maybe has 9, 10 years of experience, we get mentorship from guys that have 18, 20, 25 years of experience.
All right. Are you a senior engineer now?
Yes.
That's a senior engineer. So you kind of like when you get rookies in the field working on your team, you kind of like show them the way, pave the way basically a little bit for them. Is this something that your company appoints or you just kind of like take them under your wing per se?
No, I mean, manager can approach, say, hey, could you maybe like, and at times it's not this like super formal mentoring. I mean, maybe you have someone that graduated with a master's or something and started working and say, hey, could you maybe check on them every so often, make sure they're not stuck and they know where to go to get unstuck. Because that's the other thing. It's not like school where you're supposed to know the answers. Either you know or you don't. If you
Right.
don't know something, it's usually better to start making noise really
Yeah.
early on and ask, hey, I have this problem. Before I tried to start digging through mountains of documentation or tons of Googling. Has anybody else run into this that maybe can give me a pointer? And young engineers usually don't know that. They think they have to prove themselves without
Yeah.
any help.
Right, right. That's a really good point. And the other thing that you mentioned, and I think it's important that exactly what you talked about when you say, I already looked at these steps and I can't figure it out. So that means that you already put some effort into figuring it out and you're not just dumping the whole problem onto somebody else, you know. So you
Hmm.
seriously you do need help.
Yeah, yeah, and often it could be pointing me the right direction. Is it
Hmm.
someone in the company that knows the subject better? It's a place where I can find documentation,
Right.
things like that.
And so when it comes to mentoring, so let me ask you two questions. What do you expect, or what would you expect from a mentor, and then what would you expect from a mentee? Because it's like it's I feel like there has to be some chemistry there for things to work out. You know,
Absolutely.
just because somebody's appointed you mentor, it doesn't mean that they have to like each other. That's my point. There has to be some type of chemistry for things to for the wheels to turn per se. So you as a mentor, and then you have one. What would you expect from a mentor? Or what do you think the duties of a mentor are?
I mean, first of all, it helps if you have a good relationship with them.
Hmm.
Like they know about you, about your family, um, and you know you have a little bit of that personal touch. That really goes a long way.
Right.
Um, and also a good mentor, someone that again, it's not about trying to put you on the spot, right? They're trying to say, um, how are you doing with this? Are you stuck on anything? Have you run into any issues, or sort of have you found anything that you think someone else needs to address as well? Um, those are things that a mentor does.
Right.
Um, anticipating things like I said, like we said before, imposter syndrome is very common. So a good
Hmm.
mentor probably will anticipate that. Yeah, I mean, the mentees might be struggling a little bit with imposter syndrome. So being
Right.
a little sensitive to that really goes a long way.
Yeah. And then what would you expect from a mentee?
Plenty, mostly enthusiasm, wanting
Mm,
to get the thing done. And the most helpful thing is, I mean, when they're stuck, um, not be afraid to say, hey, I'm a little stuck on this. I would like maybe some people point me in the right direction.
right,
And,
right,
and, and that's easy because I mean, doesn't mean that I'm gonna take the project and do it myself. You say, oh yeah, that thing maybe I should have told you about this earlier. That's always the things that sometimes you assume people know that uh, maybe they don't. So maybe say,
right.
oh yeah, you need to go to this part on our internal wiki or documentation, and you can find what someone else has done on this.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, are you mentoring anyone now in your current company?
I not formally, no,
Not officially,
not at
like
the
not
moment,
officially the mentor per se.
not right now.
Yeah. You mentoring a lot of people in the Facebook group though.
Yeah, I mean, not really concerned with stuff mentor. Just I just hate the idea of people putting a lot of effort. Um, And the honest truth, I feel that sometimes universities are not very upfront
Yeah.
about a lot of things. So people think, oh, I just need to go to college, get good grades, and that should set me up for life. And I just that,
Right, right. That's yeah, that's a really good perspective on how colleges don't teach enough when it comes to, okay, yeah, you're teaching me the technical skills, but then
yeah,
how do I actually put those technical skills to good use, and how do I bridge my skills with what companies need? And I think that maybe, and then that's where you need people skills and communication and marketing and things that may be useful to learn also in college, you know?
and further, sometimes they're just not upfront about what you do in your education, how likely
Mhm.
is to get you a job. They're just
Right.
not. Although
Yeah.
not their job. That's what they do. Their job is
Yeah.
to teach as many people as they can. But yeah, I mean, you can get in situations where you study a major that it's really niche, or there's just too many graduates for the number of jobs that are for there for
Hmm.
that major.
Okay, so the connection dropped there, so there may be a little sudden change of it on the editing. However, we were talking about the ability for students to put their skills to good use, and in colleges don't really teach young people, or don't really let them know that even if they have the technical skills, it may still be a little rough to get the job or to get opportunities going into the field. So you mentioned a little earlier how maybe there may be not too many job opportunities for some fields based on projections from the Bureau of Labor Statistics in the United States. So when it
Yeah.
comes to your field, um, when it comes to computer science, and then looking into the future, let's look into now first. What are some languages per se that you think, programming languages that are worth knowing nowadays, and then into the future?
I think that more than languages, it's sort of each sub area in computer science will usually have sort of set of frameworks and tools that are sort of the industry standard,
Hmm.
and the language tends to be part of it as well. So if you're going to go into, uh, for example, if you go into device driver development, you're probably going to be using C. If you go into game development, it's probably going to be C++ or C sharp, because that
Hmm.
the languages are the two main game engines that most people use. Um, for AI, it seems that everybody's settled on Python.
Hmm.
Um, for web development, there's a ton of them. Um, so
PHP.
so
I
it's,
just
it's
know
highly
about PHP.
yeah, it's highly dependent on sort of the field that you go into.
Hmm.
And also to some degree the particular company. There are some companies that all their web development is done in .NET, so you usually use C sharp. And there's
Mm.
other ones that still use Java, or other ones will use PHP, etc.
So it's highly dependent, and it seems like based on what you're saying, the key is to adapt to whatever language. It's like know how to learn languages.
Absolutely, and how to learn in general.
Mm.
That's one thing is you need to be able to pick up things fairly quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
and, and that's a tricky thing because there's this conception that the older you get, um, your knowledge becomes outdated.
Mm.
And I found personally many you know, like you could say more senior engineers or principal engineers that keep themselves really marketable because they always kept learning and they always kept
Mm,
upgrading their knowledge. That's
mm,
sort of what I aspire to do as well. So like in my case, for example, my when when I was in my junior year at BYU, I had been doing web development for a while, and I didn't like it too much. A little bit of a bad experience with that internship that I told you.
mm,
But then I took a computer graphics class, and it blew my mind. I loved it so much.
mm,
You get to use math, definitely math intensive. You need to know linear algebra. You need to know trigonometry. Um, so then I took a bunch of classes on that, and then when I was getting close to graduation, I realized, I wanna go to grad school and do this. At the time, I wanted to become a professor.
mm,
Um, so that's what I did in grad school. I did computer graphics, and that's what my first job was about, doing computer
yeah.
graphics. But now we come to the point where my team sort of migrated into say, yeah, we're going to do computer graphics mixed with machine learning.
Mm,
And I knew nothing about machine learning. I didn't take a single class on AI or machine learning, either in undergraduate school or grad school.
mm-hmm,
So you get all these guys that have a lot more experience than me in computer graphics and whatnot, taking Coursera classes
mm-hmm.
on machine learning, and that's how we learn a lot of stuff. And
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah,
continually updating is important.
right. Yeah. So I think it also highlights the importance of being open to learning new things. And then, so applying the same philosophy that you just talked about in your industry, how you went from learning about graphics, to learn from graphics to a whole new field in the company that you work for now. I think the same thing can happen. Like, for example, if we extrapolate that philosophy, and let's say if somebody's into logistics, and they go into technical field, and then from the technical field they go into project management, and they kind of so you kind of keep adding more skills to your portfolio, and you kind of keep up to date with in whichever industry you're part of.
Absolutely, yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. It's important to keep always learning in engineering.
So when it comes to always learning, and let's say if you are, so let's say in your case, right, computer scientist, uh, in the next 5, 10 years per se, do you think a company could hire? I'm getting to the point of ageism,
Hmm.
because obviously we're all gonna get there. We're all gonna be 40. We're all gonna be 50. So is this something that you've dealt with in the past? Maybe you've seen somebody that was let go, and then a younger person was brought in, or maybe two younger people for half the salary of the person that was let go. Um, you know, I don't know if you ever experienced that. Have you ever seen it happen? Because it seems to be something. I watch Joshua Fluke, his
I
channel.
love Joshua Fluke.
Yeah, yeah. So I watch his channel, and then also watch. Do you watch Tech Lead?
I watch Tech Lead. I
Yeah.
watch Shane Hummus and your channel. That's what I do for fun. I
Oh,
watch
cool, cool, cool.
YouTubers.
So, and I think this is actually a good, well, a problem, a wide known problem, ageism. When you,
Hmm.
why am I going to pay? And also thinking as a business person, if you think about why am I going to be paying somebody, let's say, $170,000 or $180,000 when I can hire two new grads for, let's say, 70,000 each.
Hmm.
Obviously there's a big difference of the experience and wisdom, but I don't know if you ever experienced that in your career so far.
Uh, I haven't experienced it. I've seen, let's see, one company that I worked a long time ago. Um, well, that's a company that had a bit of a reputation of hiring people, laying them off, hiring them, laying them off, and then hiring them as contractors, so they wouldn't have to
Mm,
get benefits. But there are other companies. I'm not gonna lie. My current company, NVIDIA, um, I really like them because they put a lot of emphasis on their employees.
hmm.
Like if the CEO has extra money, he's gonna spend it on hiring people and
Yeah.
retaining them. I like that very much. So it really varies from company to company, and it's mostly a philosophical thing.
Mm,
Um,
right.
so you have a CEO that has a good philosophy on this, that's a good company to work for.
What company was that?
NVIDIA.
NVIDIA. All right.
NVIDIA. And the the main thing, lost my train of thought for a second. What can you do? I think it's, like I said, important to stay relevant. And when you look at stats for hiring and such, what you can see that they need so many new mechanical engineers or software engineers every year, but that's very skewed towards people with more experience. So when you break in the first job, it really makes a lot of difference, because as you gain more experience, you become more marketable, because when you join a company as a new grad, you don't really know how to do a job. Like I said, colleges don't teach you job skills. They teach you a basis of knowledge to build on. So
Right.
someone from the company is going to have to train you to become productive. So sure, you can hire 2 cheaper new grads for $60K instead of getting a more experienced engineer for 150. But someone needs to teach them, and that person has to be an engineer. So you notice that as you get more experience, you become pretty marketable. Then there's a point where a lot of companies are reaching out to you, trying to basically spamming your LinkedIn and such to see if it can get you to apply to jobs.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, as long as you stay relevant, because yeah, if you can stagnate, that doesn't happen as much.
Exactly. That was my point. So the key point, it seems, is to stay relevant and then upgrade your skills and be involved, per se, in what's going on in the industry and the new languages coming out. So with that, I think that's a good segue to, how about certifications? Like, do you believe in certifications? Is this something that computer scientists should get, or maybe software engineers in the future? What do you think about them?
Yeah, it's not a thing for software engineering. I know that for many engineers, they have the fundamentals of engineering exam and then the professional engineer exam. There used to be a software engineer exam made by, I forget the name of the association that makes these exams. They discontinued for lack of interest. So there used to be a software engineering PE.
Oh, really?
And they discontinued because nobody cared. I think that one thing that software engineering has, it's much more results driven. Like, for example, we don't get a PE to certify a project. Usually when there's a project that requires, like if you're gonna civil engineer, you're gonna sign off on plans for a bridge, you need to have your PE, right? You need to be certified for that. When you write software, let's say for a self-driving car or something, it's not the engineer that writes it as certified, it's the software itself. Right. They have their own software auditing and certification processes. So it's more about the product being certified, not the engineer.
Right. So it seems like the portfolio is what matters the most.
Portfolio matters, and in some cases, more than a degree. It can happen. Depends on the job, though. Depends highly on the job, but yeah.
So so in that case, since the portfolio matters a lot, do you think it's still worth, if I'm someone that just learns languages and start building websites, let's say, and I'm referring to websites because that's like the easiest thing for me to relate to when it comes to programming. So I start building websites, per se, or start helping somebody out with AI or graphic cards. I start building my portfolio. I showcase it on my website, and then do I really need a degree then?
That's a good question. And there are jobs that I think has to do with the amount of math and sort of background, like body of knowledge that you require for a particular job. And they're not all the same. A person doing front-end development.
So what does he mean? What does he mean when somebody says front end, back end? Because I'm not too programming savvy. So how would you explain that?
I haven't done it in a long time, but basically front-end development are people that worry about sort of programming the main functionality and usability of a website. So they're the ones that usually will work in JavaScript. they will work on, let's say, when you click an element, a really nice menu drops down that has a certain look. They will do a lot of that. Usually, it's not something you're going to be seeing a ton of math when you're doing that. Back-end development has to do with sort of the things that the server has to do in the background to serve what you need. They're not so worried about how the website looks, but rather what it does. So a back-end developer could be the one that, let's say it's a shopping website. They're the ones that have to write the code for accessing the catalog of products that you have, be able to process a credit card transaction, update inventory, things like that. Things are not seen on the website when you.
Right.
So
back-end development seems to be a little more complex.
A little bit more complex, a little bit more knowledge in the terms of architecting computer systems. You need to know a little bit more about software, like software patterns.
Would you compare that? Patterns. Would you compare that to an architect and a civil engineer? Is that a good? Not really.
Maybe I don't have enough background either to be able to tell you, but possibly. I don't know.
Yeah. So because the architect,
I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't know much about civil engineering.
Right. Because the architect is, I mean, to me, I'm just going to put it simply. Architect just worries about how something looks, and then the civil engineer has to go in there and make it happen. You know, so okay, well, how do I actually? So it seems like that's kind of like the relation. I may be wrong.
There's an analogy. There's an analogy there, yeah.
Right.
And full stack means that you know both. That
a
you
full
can
stack?
Do either one, yes.
Oh, okay. So I'm guessing those guys are highly sought after, a full stack. Well, I guess it depends on what you want, right?
I think it depends. I think I haven't keeping a lot with the trends in web development since I haven't done much of it in a long time. But I think full stack's sort of like the place to be right now.
Like more versatile.
Yeah, and I mean a large number of software development jobs are related to this, making mobile apps, making websites. But there's a lot of the jobs that are more systems related in many cases and require a lot more knowledge of math. Like if you want to do computer graphics, again, you need linear algebra, you need trigonometry.
How do you need
numerical analysis help?
How does linear algebra help you? Because I don't think I ever took that. I think that's like a math that you take. Wait, no, I did take linear algebra. I'm kidding. So how does that help in programming? Because you mentioned it quite a bit.
Well, so if you are trying to program a game engine from scratch, being able to, you want someone to be able to, an artist to go in a program like a CAD program like Maya or Blender or 3D Max to be able to draw a character, right? And how do you put that in a game? Well, basically these things are made out of vertices, and you need to be able to transform the vertex from one coordinate system to another one. And all that is done through basically matrix multiplications.
Yeah.
Where each of the terms in the matrix has to be it has something to do with a cosine or a sine of an angle.
Yeah, gotcha. So, I think. Yeah. So basically, every point it's a three-dimensional has three coordinates, right? You X, Y, and Z, and then you have a bunch of points. So they're all gonna. So in order to make them move, then you start talking about what you're saying, like all the matrix calculations and okay. Got it.
Basically, and even further, you actually work on four dimensions because that makes it easier to then project them into a plane. That's this pipeline of matrix multiplication operations to get all your geometry that makes up a game character get into the screen, turn into pixels. And graphics cards do that very fast.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a lot of technical terms there that I could get lost in. When it comes to, I think I really made a good decision when I said I'm not doing computer science, and then because that was my first major, and I was like, man, computer science. I'm glad I quit the second semester basically because I was able to identify those cues. You know, I was like, yeah, all the programming and stuff. I mean, it sounds really interesting for sure, but I'm just glad I'm not in that world.
Well, understandable. I mean, my son, he's learned how to program, and he told me right from the start, I don't want to be a software engineer. I want to be a mechanical engineer because he wants to make robots
Oh,
and
nice.
airplanes. So he told me, don't try to convince me to go into software engineer. I want to be a mechanical engineer.
Did it break your heart? Did he break your
No,
heart?
no, no, no.
No.
I'm happy. I'm happy for him
Oh, okay, good, good.
to, to help him out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so yeah, mechanical engineering, I think it's very versatile for sure. And I think that it's easy to, let's say, quote unquote, fit in to many industries. And then you can learn languages if that's your thing on aerospace. Aerospace, I think, what do you think about aerospace? Do you think it's a little too niche per se, or what's your take on that?
I love aerospace in back when, in fact, back when I was on a PhD program that I didn't finish.
Hmm.
I were required to take a minor, a graduate minor outside of the computer science department, and I was
Yeah,
thinking of doing aerospace because I thought it was so cool.
yeah.
Um, I, I can't really speak for that because I don't have a lot of knowledge about their. I know, understand, for example, that a large segment of the jobs, the job market for aerospace engineers is in defense, and a lot of times that means that
Hmm.
you have to be a U.S. citizen, and
Right.
so a lot of international students have a hard time getting to that industry. Um,
Yeah, yeah, aerospace. Yeah, it's yeah, like you say, it has to be. It's one of those things that you have to be. You have to know what's after aerospace. You know,
yeah,
like do you have to have a citizenship? And I think this goes back to the we were when we were talking about schools not really giving you a full disclaimer on what it really entails
yeah,
to major in something. You know,
right.
because so go ahead.
And oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, 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 go ahead, go ahead.
No, further, I would say it's important to know, like, a lot of people pick a major based on what sounds cool, or maybe they take a class and they like it and then go off of that. And the people that I found that that are very successful are the ones that pick a career and then figure out what they need to get there. Right?
Mm,
I wasn't like that. I'm not putting myself as an example. But there are people say, and people in the group, the Facebook group that we're in, I've seen they've told me, for example, that I know that I want to let's say be an electrical engineer and be an entrepreneur, and they know what they want to do, and
mhm.
they're sort of putting together the schooling to match that. And I think
Right, right.
that's key to not in a situation that you don't like, and also avoid student debt or other things like that.
Right. Man, student debt, something that did you ever get into student debt when you were in college or
No, I when I was an undergrad, I couldn't because I was an international student at the time, so I couldn't get
mm,
loans. So
mm,
I arranged a way where I could live with friends,
mhm.
um, and working part time on campus meant that I would make enough money to pay tuition. So I was able to graduate without any loans or anything like that.
Oh, that's
For
awesome.
for grad school, um, I started as a PhD student because that's what I wanted to do at the time. I wanted to be a professor, and that changed later on.
Yeah.
I was terrible at research. I love prototyping, like making software prototypes of like state-of-the-art stuff. That was really cool, and I was good at it.
Yeah.
But research is something else. It's a different job. It's like you're not an engineer anymore.
Yeah.
Engineers produce solutions to problems that are used in industry.
Yeah.
Researchers they make they produce scientific publications for academic journals, and they're
Mm,
not one and the same. And I
right.
realized that a little bit later on, and yeah, I was doing that great with research and not a good match. So
Yeah, but
eventually,
that's it's a good thing that you at least tried it, but now you know that you don't like research. You know, it's not like a
yes,
what if. So
yeah,
that's a good experience.
definitely,
Yeah, and I can totally attest to that whole research because in when I was in doing my senior design, I was with this professor who really wanted to publish a paper on what we were working on. We're basically working on developing a undercarriage of, if you look at a plane, if you look at the bottom, the undercarriage, he was trying to design it in such a way that would withstand water landing.
Okay.
So it was pretty cool from the material perspective, and the obviously like the shape, and but he was just so pushy on, hey, we need to write this paper, we need to write this paper. So we have to go into the office and then write the damn paper. And like you say, at that point, you're just trying to publish it in a magazine or somewhere, and you're not really thinking out. I mean, I guess in order to write it, you have to have the technical data, you know.
Yeah.
And then, so I guess in a way, but at that point, it's more writing than anything on the whole research.
It is. And there's a difference between a research prototype and a product. It's a world difference. So yeah. I in my case, for that reason, I mean, when you're a PhD student, you don't pay tuition. You work for the school, like teaching, and they waive your tuition. They give you a stipend that maybe may pay your rent. That's about it.
Yeah. So now that we touched on knowing what you like, how do you, if you were, let's say, 20 or 25 and you don't know what you want, you're an engineer, you're getting your degree, how would you find your passion? That's something that a lot of young people want to get into. They want to discover themselves, you know, like how would you find your passion? Because it seems like you found what you really like and what you're really into, and then you're making a career out of it. How did you discover that?
I was lucky. Again, my dad got me that computer. As a kid, I played with it and I really enjoyed it. And really that's sort of what set me on that path. But I know that not everybody's like that. And it really comes to, again, thinking in terms of what would I like to do for 45 plus years. So college is just a stepping stone. It's not, the college lifestyle is just not something that's that important in the big scheme of things. Trying things. I mean, we're in the age where you can Google anything. You can find anything. You can, if you know someone that works on something that you find interesting, you could ask them about it. Maybe you can shadow them, or they would be willing to tell you about their job and finding out. And again, keeping the focus on careers. And there's also, you probably heard the concept of the ikigai. This Japanese Japanese concept where finding your ikigai means that you find something. Let's see if I get it right. Something that you enjoy, something that makes the world a better place, something that can also like give you money. You can live off of it.
Right.
And I can't remember what the fourth leg of it is, but basically a balance between multiple things.
Yeah.
It's easy to be passionate about something that will sort of not really make any money, and then, or you can end up on a job that makes you money, but you're completely miserable at.
Right. No, that's definitely really good insight. And I think, like you say, it's a combination of different things that really fulfill you and give you that sense of like satisfaction in the long term. So I got one final question for you. What are your long-term goals per se? Now that you're making a career, you're considered probably like mid-career, right?
Yeah, I mean, probably, yeah.
Yeah. So what are your long-term goals per se?
Currently, my long-term goal is to move from senior engineer to principal engineer. The guys that get to make contributions, to have a bigger impact, mentor more people. That's sort of what I would like. They make a bigger impact on a company on what they do.
It seems like you also have a passion for teaching. Am I wrong?
I like teaching. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like I don't know. I like contributing.
Yeah, you like giving back.
I feel that I've had so many people that have helped me many times that sort of way to pay it forward, I guess you could say.
Yeah. No, it definitely
helps. That's always helpful.
Yeah, for sure. No, it definitely seems like you got that what do you call that, skill of explaining things very simply, and then also like giving different perspectives in one answer. Like, because I look at your answers, and then a lot of them are very detailed, and then you look at different scenarios for the same question, and it seems like you really take the time to provide us much useful information as possible to like the young people coming behind. Have you ever thought about opening a YouTube channel and like sharing like questions and stuff, or that's not your
Um,
thing?
Probably not my thing, but I would definitely say everything you describe applies to you, man. I've seen your answers too. I've seen your videos. I mean, you do a great job at it.
Thank you, I
I
appreciate
think
that.
yeah, I think that spirit of giving, you are pretty well alive as well, and that's good. The more people that do that,
Right,
the more people are helped.
exactly.
Um, Probably not my thing. I'm kind of pretty private, I guess.
That's good.
Um,
No, that's good. That's good too. But you're sharing a lot of it in the group, which is, I'm sure, is very highly appreciated. And I think that if the group had an award for the most giving like engineer, you probably take it.
I've seen so many mentors that contribute so much, and they have so much more experience than me. So
Yeah,
it's a group effort.
yeah, for sure. Exactly. It's definitely good to turn around and give back to the people that are coming behind. For sure, I agree. So what's your perfect day? I always like to finish
Perfect
on
day.
a good note. What's a perfect day for Cristobal?
The day that I figure out a bug and I fix it, a bug that's been bothering me for days, and that happened more often than you would imagine. Those are the best days.
Oh boy.
Well, from a professional point of view, I mean,
Right, right.
one that I
That's
get to do stuff with my family. But professionally speaking, it's when you find that bug that kept you angry for
what's
days.
what's the longest the bug has ever taken you to figure out?
I don't want to talk about
Oh, really?
that. There are some bugs that, let's say, will so subtle that might take you uh, a week, 2 weeks, and that's just not cool.
That's hilarious. Wow, a week.
Yeah,
That's a
not
long
often.
time.
That's a long time, but yeah. When you're working with like really large, complex systems that have so many moving parts, sometimes it takes time to be able to track the specific condition that causes something to go wrong.
Right, right. All right. Well, Cristobal, do you have any other questions that you want to go over before we head out?
Uh, no, man. I love the questions you've had. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you again for joining. I really appreciate your time, and I'm gonna post this to the group so that everyone can get to know you a little better, your experience. And so, with that being said, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and then we'll keep in touch in the group.
Cool, man. Yeah. Thank you so much again for having me.
Awesome,
Pretty fun.
thank you. All right, enjoy your night, man.
You too, man. Take care.
Peace.